Another deeply unsettling claim. This myth suggests a forced renunciation of faith. This is another conspiracy-heavy idea often seen on Reddit or YouTube. The truth lies in understanding symbolic language. This is similar to myth 3, where there is a misunderstanding of symbolism. BGLO ritual language often employs symbolic transformation metaphors, a common element in religious and civic organizations worldwide, representing growth and commitment. Crucially, no BGLO demands renouncing any personal faith. Initiation rites in fraternities across cultures use symbolic language about loyalty, brotherhood, or transformation. These metaphors are standard in fraternal, religious, military, and civic organizations. BGLOs do not require members to sign away souls, renounce faith, or pledge supernatural allegiance in any literal sense. Faith generally supersedes all things in fraternities and sororities. Arnold van Gennep's classic work Rites of Passage, 1909, provides a foundational anthropological framework that demonstrates what initiation rituals actually are in social life, and why they are not about renouncing personal religion or pledging one's soul. Van Gennep identified 3 universal stages in initiation rituals across cultures: separation to transition, liminality to incorporation. These stages mark social transformation, not religious renunciation. Modern ritual studies, for example in religious and sociological literature, emphasize that rites of passage frequently employ symbolic language, secrecy, and oaths, but this does not equate to spiritual damnation, soul pledging, or religious apostasy. Initiation into Greek letter organizations fits Van Gennep's model without any doctrinal religious implications. What participants undergo is symbolic transformation and incorporation into a community, not spiritual renunciation. Contrary to claims that BGLOs involve soul pledging or require renouncing religion, the founders and histories of BGLOs clearly show other motivations and commitments. Black Greek letter organizations were formed with explicit secular purposes aimed at brotherhood or sisterhood and mutual support, academic excellence, community service, and racial uplift. Public voices within these organizations, including members quoted by news outlets, have explicitly stated that being a member of a BGLO can be compatible with being a Christian or holding another faith. There is no official primary historical source from BGLO founders that describes initiation as renouncing religion or pledging one's soul. BGLO rituals are internal organizational traditions designed to build commitment to the organization's values, not to a supernatural or anti-religious force. Scholarly work on BGLOs, for example, Black Greek Letter Organizations 2.0, contextualizes these rites as part of fraternal culture and social identity, not spiritual transactions. This myth projects mystical imagery onto what are fundamentally fraternal symbols and practices. BGLO rituals are not about magic. BGLO rituals contain systems of values, narrative allegories, and historical lessons designed to educate and inspire members. Conspiracy content often misrepresents normal fraternal symbolism, projecting an imagined mystical power that simply isn't present. This claim collapses symbolism, heritage, and religion into one category, something scholars explicitly warn against. African-derived religions are coherent, public, structured belief systems, not hidden codes embedded in secular organizations. James H. Sweet, Harvard historian, in Recreating Africa and Related Work, Sweet shows that African spiritual systems in the Americas survived through explicit ritual practice, community transmission, priesthoods, and cosmologies, required continuous religious communities, sacred specialists, and theological instruction, were not secret metaphors or symbolic fragments hidden inside non-religious institutions. Sweet emphasizes that African religious traditions survived despite enslavement through intentional, collective religious practice, not symbolic camouflage inside secular groups. Albert J. Raboteau, Yale scholar of slave religion. Raboteau makes a critical distinction between cultural memory, religious practice. He shows that African Americans retained symbols, values, and aesthetic sensibilities, but religion required belief, ritual repetition, and theological meaning. Rabateau explicitly warns against assuming that African symbolism automatically equals African religion. Fraternities are symbolic by design. Western fraternal organizations, including Freemasons, Oddfellows, Knights of Pythias, collegiate Greek organizations, all use allegory, ritualized movement, oaths, symbolism, secrecy. Historians of fraternalism are clear these symbols are didactic, not mystical. They teach loyalty, ethics, discipline, identity, collective memory. Not magic, not religion. African religions require belief systems, clergy, and worship. BGLOs do not teach theology, deities, or spiritual cosmology. African diaspora scholars reject symbolic reductionism. Therefore, BGLO symbolism is cultural and fraternal, not esoteric African magic. Scholars of the African diaspora are clear. African religions survive through faith communities, not hidden codes. And historians of fraternal organizations are equally clear. Symbolism teaches values, not magic. The myth that BGLOs hide African sorcery collapses under both lenses. This myth argues that BGLOs function as shadow organizations that discipline Black leadership through secrecy, ritual, and elite gatekeeping, limiting independent political action. It suggests a manipulative, hidden agenda behind BGLO formation. The reality is far more empowering. BGLOs were instrumental in fostering Black leadership precisely because they offered vital networking, educational opportunities, and mutual support at a time when Black Americans were systematically excluded from mainstream society. Their influence grew from their open commitment to uplift and empowerment, not from political manipulation through secret rituals. This myth persists because it mixes three true things into a false conclusion, which are: BGLOs produced many leaders. BGLOs use ritual and symbolism. Elites often form networks, but it falsely assumes that secrecy equals manipulation, networking equals control, and ritual equals ideological programming. Ross demonstrates that BGLOs were created in response to systemic exclusion from white fraternities as mutual support networks for Black students to cultivate leadership, professional development, and civic engagement. Crucially, Ross shows BGLOs were not centralized political organizations. They lacked any unified political ideology. They often disagreed internally on political strategy. Ross documents BGLO members who challenged political power, engaged in radical activism, took opposing stances on civil rights strategies. An organization designed to control elites would suppress dissent. BGLOs did not. Alden Morris's The Origins of the Civil Rights Movement is a landmark sociological study of how Black movements actually formed and mobilized. Morris's central argument is that successful movements require indigenous institutions, such as churches, colleges, civic groups, decentralized leadership, collective resources, and organizational autonomy. BGLOs fit one part of this ecosystem, but they were never command centers. Morris shows Black churches were the primary organizing hubs. Ministers, not fraternal officers, mobilized mass participation. Movement strategy came from grassroots organizing, not elite ritual groups. If BGLOs controlled Black political elites, then Morris would have identified them as movement engines. Instead, he identifies churches, student groups, and local organizations. This absence is powerful evidence. Elite networks do not equal elite control. Morris explicitly warns against confusing social networks with hierarchical domination. BGLOs functioned as social and professional networks, leadership training spaces, and civic engagement pipelines. But Morris shows that network membership does not produce ideological obedience, especially in Black freedom struggles marked by internal debate and contestation. This myth persists because it mixes three true things into a false conclusion. BGLOs produced many leaders. BGLOs use ritual and symbolism. Elites often form networks, but it falsely assumes that secrecy equals manipulation, networking equals control, ritual equals ideological programming. Neither Ross nor Morris finds evidence for this leap. If Black Greek letter organizations were designed to control Black political elites, historians would find centralized ideology, enforced obedience, and coordinated outcomes. What they actually find, according to Lawrence Ross and Alden Morris, is something else entirely: decentralized networks that expanded leadership capacity, not shadow systems of control. The idea often linked to Black Greek letter organizations is what W.B. Du Bois called the talented tenth. The belief that investing in the most academically prepared and capable leaders could help advance the entire Black community. For people unfamiliar with the concept, this can sound elitist, especially when BGLOs emphasize high achievement, leadership, and selectivity. That perception is understandable. When organizations value excellence and credentials, they can appear exclusive from the outside. But the talented tenth was never about grooming a separate ruling class or isolating elites from the community. Du Bois argued that leadership came with obligation, not superiority, that those with access, education, and opportunity had a responsibility to serve, uplift, and expand access for others. BGLOs adopted this framework not to control or separate, but to prepare members for service, civic engagement, and leadership in spaces where Black voices were historically excluded. The appearance of elitism reflects a focus on preparation and accountability, not the creation of a closed or controlling elite. This myth suggests that BGLO rituals are rooted in violent tribal African practices, implying physical harm, coercion, or blood-based rites as part of initiation. This relies on racist stereotypes about African culture, projecting a false narrative of savagery onto honorable traditions. This claim relies on racialized misunderstanding of African cultures, ignores anthropological evidence, and misrepresents American fraternal history. When those are collapsed into one narrative, people imagine something that neither anthropology nor history supports. Anthropologists have long rejected the idea that African initiation rites are inherently violent. What the scholarship actually shows: across African societies, initiation rites marked social transition, not punishment. Physical endurance, where present, was symbolic, limited, and culturally regulated. Violence was not the defining feature. Meaning, instruction, and community recognition were. Most importantly, initiation rites embedded in communal accountability. They were overseen by elders and bounded by cultural rules, not chaotic or abusive acts. When we look at actual BGLO history, there is no documentation in BGLO founding records, manuals, or early histories that describes violent initiation rites, physical injury as ritual requirement, blood-based or bodily harm ceremonies. When violence has occurred in BGLO contexts, historians and organizations identify it as unauthorized, and BGLOs themselves have publicly condemned it. BGLOs did not emerge in a vacuum. They developed inside a well-documented American fraternal culture. They did not inherit violent rites, African or otherwise. Anthropology shows that African initiation rites were structured and communal, not violent. BGLO history shows rituals rooted in American fraternal tradition, not tribal brutality. And fraternalism in the United States has always distinguished symbolism from harm. The idea that BGLOs practice violent tribal rites isn't just incorrect. It's based on stereotypes, not evidence. There is a widely held belief that hazing is part of the Black Greek letter organization pledge process. That belief is a myth. Every Black Greek letter organization explicitly prohibits hazing. National constitutions, bylaws, university agreements, and legal statements are clear. Hazing is not permitted, and it is not part of the official process. Yet acknowledging that truth does not make the problem disappear. Hazing is not sanctioned, but it does exist. And understanding why it persists requires separating policy from practice. From a factual standpoint, the organization's positions are unambiguous. Hazing violates organizational rules and often violates university policy and the law. When hazing occurs, it is a deviation, not a requirement. But across many institutions, rules alone have not eliminated the behavior. This gap between formal prohibition and informal practice is not unique to BGLOs. It is a pattern seen in many long-standing institutions where identity, tradition, and belonging are tightly intertwined. . Hazing persists not because it is officially endorsed, but because it functions, informally, as a rite of passage. In many organizations across society, difficult initiation is used to signal commitment, endurance, and loyalty. Over time, these signals can escalate, especially when members feel pressure to recreate their own experiences or prove legitimacy to those who came before them. Importantly, this does not make hazing acceptable. It explains why it reappears even when it is banned. And consumed. A second analogy can be found in high-intensity institutional training environments, such as elite athletics or military preparation. Official doctrine prohibits abuse. Oversight structures exist, yet violations still occur when informal actors exceed intended boundaries. When they do, institutions respond with investigations, discipline, and reform, not by redefining abuse as acceptable, but by reinforcing accountability and supervision. The lesson is not that harm is inevitable, but that deeply embedded practices are difficult to eliminate through rules alone. Decades of enforcement across many sectors show a consistent pattern. When prohibited practices are driven entirely underground, they often become harder to detect and more dangerous. This does not argue against prohibition. Prohibition is essential, but it does suggest that prevention, transparency, education, and swift consequences are equally critical. Complete eradication has proven difficult, not because organizations accept hazing, but because informal culture adapts faster than formal rules. To be clear, hazing is not part of the BGLO process. It never has been, and it is not permitted. Hazing is a real problem, but it is a problem that exists in defiance of stated values, not because of them. Understanding that distinction matters, not to excuse behavior, but to address it honestly, without myth, without emotion, and without pretending that complex cultural problems have simple solutions.